Turn on my light real quickly. It's the time.
Turn it on. Okay, so here we are, guys. This is basically the Jessica show because a couple of Jessicas are coming together to talk about education. Is what we want to do, is what we love. So most of you, or maybe some of you, know that I am a tutor. I have a tutoring business called JPS Tutoring, and I'm also here to interview other teachers who know what they're talking about. So if you like this type of content, I'd love for you to subscribe to my channel and all that good stuff. But today I want to talk about the problem with colleges, and my friend Jessica is here with me, and Jessica has a really fun way of reaching students and giving great advice to other teachers as well. You are from the Birmingham area, correct?
Yes, Birmingham, Alabama. I
Yeah.
am.
That's great. So we've got Atlanta and Birmingham in the house today. So Jessica, I found you on Instagram and I was so excited because I thought, wow, she is really finding some creative ways to reach people and students. And right now, guys, she has over 5,000 followers. So you know she's doing something right when she's actually teaching and influencing in a really great way, not just showing off. So Jessica, why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself, what you do, and what people need to know about you right now?
Okay. So my name is Jessica Barner Gomez. I am a native and a resident of Alabama. And so I've kind of traveled a lot in between central Alabama. So right now I'm in Birmingham, Alabama. I am a speech language pathologist, but I am considered a new speech language pathologist because I got that degree this past December. I do have 4 degrees, the bachelor's, a dual major bachelor's in English and communication studies, a master's degree in English, a second bachelor's degree in communication science and disorders, and a second master's degree in speech language pathology, which is why I'm a speech language pathologist today. But I do also use my skills as with my other degrees as a tutor. And so I do tutor and I run 4 other prizes, which I've been running for the past about 4.5 years now. And I focus on the areas of reading, math up into pre-calculus, English, ACT, SAT, GRE, GED, and ASVAB. So those are all of my areas there for my tutoring business. Also, I do editing with my tutoring business too. Something interesting about me, let's see, I have a sibling. That's my only sibling. We actually, there's like this term called Irish twins. So it's like we were born less than 12 months apart. So just under a year apart. Yeah. So we were born under a year apart. She's the youngest. And so we have a time, every August. Both our birthdays in August, but she was a preemie. So she was born before my first birthday. So we have 24 days every August that we're the same exact age. So that's what I like to call our twin phase every year.
Okay, that is fascinating. Oh, I love it. So why don't you tell me what is one way that you reach students and make their lives better?
One way, especially, is through music. I started off with experimenting with myself because I like to use myself as a guinea pig at first and see if something works. And once I found out that when I took my GRE, my graduate records exam, for my second master's degree program, that I noticed there were positive effects with that on my exams. I figured why not help other students, especially underserved students, learn better through music, especially if they're not traditional learners. So music is basically a universal language. So I love to use it when I can to assist my students.
What type of students do you normally teach?
My students, a lot of times they are, well, actually they're the age groups can be as young as, I know I've had as young as kindergarten before. And then I have all the way up to adult students. I have currently tutoring a student that I tutor right now. She's returning to college and she's my adult student. So I have like from kid to adult. They can be from any background. It doesn't matter. I don't, determine pick and choose who I would tutor or not. A lot of times they're coming from more so middle class, though there's some from underserved and lower income backgrounds that I service as well.
So when you mentioned things like GRE, ACT, SAT, that's really why I thought you're the one that I need to talk to when it comes to the big college thing, the big college scam. Okay, so let's tackle it, because it's not the easiest thing to talk about, I think, because I know that you and I we both went to college. There are probably a lot of things about it that we enjoy, we would never replace, and yet we started learning the dark side of things, as we, matured into, actual real adults. So this article I found, and I'm actually going to click on it so I don't misquote this. It's called "A Modest Proposal: Make Universities Pay for Student Debt Forgiveness." Now, the reason I found the article is because I'm a big fan of Mike Rowe, and if you haven't heard of him, he's this guy he's like a spokesperson for blue collar jobs and trying to get people to focus on other things besides college. College is necessary for a lot of people, and it's been a great route for them, but there's a lot of jobs that exist that America needs that people are sort of pushed away from. And so one of the problems is, with college costing so much, do we need to send everybody there? It seems unfair. So I got one little stat, probably the most obvious stat. USA college debt, how much is it? Anybody want to guess? Anybody writing in on the comments there? Go click on the article to find out. It is 1.64 trillion. That's trillion. That's not million, billion, which are comfortable words for us to mention. Trillion. Can you even fathom $1 trillion?
No.
Do you have $1 trillion, Jessica?
No, I do not.
I'm not a math teacher, but I still like to think I can count pretty high. I don't know if I can get to $1 trillion. I can't really fathom what $1 trillion is. So why are we there? Okay. Oh, Anna says, I'm happy to be Canadian now. Okay. Canadian friends. And that's the funny thing about when you talk about college in America, it seems like, well, are we screwed here? Because we're supposed to be this amazing country, and yet we're highly expensive in so many ways. So our college debt right now, according to this article, guys, says that it is now the second highest loan debt in our country. You want to guess what's before? What's number one besides college? Yeah, you're right, Beth. Yeah, in the trillions too. Okay, mortgage. So yeah, it's kind of common to go and take out a loan from the bank. Oh, medical. Oh, yeah, honestly, a good guess. It's there. It's one of the top ones. But we've got mortgage is number one. And then credit card debt is also up there too, as would be. But no, college has risen, and it's kind of not fair. Okay, Jessica, are you one of those people, and you don't have to, if you don't want to disclose this, that's fine, but are you one of those kids that paid your own way through college, or did you have some family assistance?
Well, for me, I went immediately for scholarships and student loans. So I had more student loans than I had scholarships. So that was basically my way of paying through college. But yeah, as a result, I do have that debt today.
Ah, okay. So what was that experience like when you went to the college and you were applying for the Fed loan or whatever it was? You're like, I want my education. What was the impression the school gave you?
I actually really liked the school. Now I went to my very first university was a Christian private university and located in Birmingham, Alabama, called Stanford University. And so I really liked it. For me personally, what I wanted coming out of high school was a school campus. It wasn't too large for me. I wanted one that was just the right size. And that felt like it was just the right fit for me. And when I met the faculty, did the tour, I really loved the vibe that I picked up there. So I thought, okay, I definitely can go forward and see myself here for the next 4 years.
And so you thought, I'm willing to take out the loan because it's kind of like, yeah, did you think, okay, I'll be able to pay it back as soon as I get a job, no problem?
Right. Yeah, more than likely I did think that.
Yeah. I don't know if you guys have seen it. I feel like I've mentioned it here before, but there's this show called Parks and Recreation, and it's a comedy, but there's one part where a couple of the characters visit a community college, and one guy says, I'm going to take one class, just one, just to start. And they go up to the counter, and the lady says, okay, that'll be $912 or something. And they're like, shell shock. Like, what, 900 what? And the guy's like, I didn't know we had to pay. And the girl said, I didn't either. My parents paid for my college. So it's funny that it's addressed publicly on TV and such, but it's sort of like normalized. Do you like having that debt on your shoulders?
No, I don't at all. Especially now having acquired 4 degrees. And actually, I went through 5 programs at 3 different universities and acquired 4 degrees. So yeah, and then I have debt from room and board from the first degree. So yeah, I'm in the 6 figures with my
Yeah.
debt.
So education is worth it to you, but yet now you've got this other thing to do with this other bill that, it's like it's a punishing thing, I think. So this article suggested some things that I kind of liked, and see what you guys think about this. So the article is saying, first and foremost, lower tuition costs. Yeah, and isn't that what we want? How about let's lower the tuition cost? What else can we do to improve this debt? Okay, here's something. Shorten degree programs that will reduce the time faculty and students spend on campuses. So apparently, the more people staying on campus, using the facilities, using the electricity, the higher the cost. I guess that makes some sense. So is that going to work, though? In your opinion, will that work if you shorten a degree program for people? Because, I mean, in a certain sense, you're stuck there for 2 years doing those core classes that you think you'll never get out of. Then you're doing the classes that matter. So how might this work? How might it work to shorten degree programs?
I'm thinking requiring less for your core. Probably not necessarily the focus, the major that you're studying, but some of the core. I feel like for me personally, even when I took core, that I really didn't need it at all. Like I remember I went to that private university. It was my very first university, and I actually had an overall good experience. But I do remember being required to take 2 sciences, and I was an English major, a dual major in English and communication studies. Now, neither one of those dealt with science at all. So why was I being made to take 2 science classes, both of which I don't refer to at all today?
Yeah, let's keep you here and make you take these classes because we get extra money, but you get smarter. And isn't that what you want? That's how it feels. Here's another suggestion the article said. Scale back unnecessary excesses like luxury dorms and huge athletic budgets. So stepping on some toes here. When the school I went to for undergrad, a couple of things that were important to me was, of course, the living situation. When you're young, you want to have a nice place to live. It's got to have pretty stuff. I cared about it back then. I wanted to be comfortable. I didn't want like algae in my shower, whatnot. So I applied and got into a pretty decently new dorm. But I guess the fact that the university built that meant, okay, we can raise tuition a bit because there's a nicer place to live. And don't you want your kids to study in a nice place? And then the second year I was there, they built this gorgeous gymnasium with large exercise rooms and like a climbing wall. And there wasn't a pool, so we kind of got gypped there. But you had to think, it's great to use that when you're there, but later you're paying for that down the road. So did you notice just the schools that you've been to, did you see where schools spent a lot of money and then, I don't know, like, did you also notice where they should have been spending money and they didn't?
Well, let me think back because when I went to the first one, that was 15 years ago. So I mean, when I first went there, but I graduated in 2010 from that first institution. I noticed one thing that school put a lot of money into, and I know that they did get a lot of their money from donors. I do understand that. They put it into the lawn care and the flower care across the whole school. They made sure the lawn was perfectly manicured, like all the time, year round, actually, year round. So it was a lot of stuff really dealing with the look of the institution. But one place I did feel like there could have been more attention put on is, like, for instance, the dorms we lived in. Our dorms were really old. And just something to disclose here, my mother went to the same university, so when she was around 18 and 19 and the same dorms were there and it was the same exact dorms with really no renovations done to them. Yeah, so I'm thinking you could have definitely put some money into fixing up those dorms if my mother was here and the dorms were still basically the same I mean, yeah, you clean them every day and stuff, but they needed renovations. Over, I would pick that over just making sure your lawn was clean and looked perfect.
My guess would be for them, appearances matter because colleges are businesses. They want to get you there, and well, it looks good for them. You don't really want to go to a place that looks bad, at least not when you're younger. When you're older and wiser, you're looking for different things. But yeah, I'm not really that surprised. It's like lawn care over fixing the building. Okay, that's one thing, sure. Um, so scaling back, getting universities to do that, it would take at this point, who knows? It feels like in a way we've dug this hole so deep and it's so terrible. And one of the problems is a lot of people decide, and I have a list here of some jobs, gender studies, art, sociology, degrees that people are things that people are interested in, but there might not be a steady job waiting for you afterward. And that was a hard lesson that a lot of my peers had to learn was, okay, you're going to go to college. Sure, it's okay if you end up paying a lot. Student loans, that's okay. You'll pay them off, but you'll have a job right after college. Well, what jobs in America now need people with degrees like gender studies, art, sociology? And see, people get a little angry and they say, no, well, I like that. That's my passion. That's what I want to do. But do we have jobs out there right now for gender studies, art, and sociology? What do you think?
I'm not 100% certain about it because I'm not as familiar, but I mean, for me, what I'm thinking of right now is like, okay, those majors, you graduate and get degrees in those. I only feel like you could go on and get a PhD in that area and teach in the area, but not like the arts though. Of course, people can go into the arts in schools and whatnot. So, but I'm thinking like, for instance, gender studies, I feel like you could go on to be a professor in that area, or if there's a certain sector that I'm not familiar with that would allow you to teach others regarding gender studies, okay, fine, but I don't feel like those are plentiful versus like, for instance, my field of this is my latest field of speech language pathology. Apparently jobs are plentiful. There are so many openings, it's ridiculous. Yeah, but it was the opposite for me for English, for instance. Openings are not as available and abundant when you're an English major.
So what I would tell students, future students, high school, about to go into colleges, don't get caught up in the dream of what you hope you want to do. You need to, yes, you should follow some passions, but I think students out there need to find where the need is. If they're planning to stay in the States or planning to stay in their area, find what the need is and decide, is that something I'd want to do? Is that an area I want to be involved in? Is construction something for me? Is welding, or is some type of business creation, is that something I can do? If so, I need to start dabbling in that. Because what I saw a lot of in college was just people going through the motions, taking the classes, wanting to get good grades. I certainly wanted to get good grades because I felt more confident in myself, but I didn't really know what I would do with those grades. I just thought, well, I'll apply for some job and get it. It was just incredibly difficult. When I graduated, there was hardly anything. The jobs that were available, I didn't have skills for, and I realized I've messed up, that I'm not ready for this. Do you think that college is pushed too early on students?
I think so. And from my perspective, I came from a family that I would say was more like middle class. My parents have been divorced most of my life, but so I had most of my care from my mother. So she was more like middle class, but her highest level of education at the time when I went to college was high school. She did go back she had some college, but she was not a college graduate. And she eventually did go back later on and became an associate's degree graduate. So I felt like, she looked at her childhood and thought, well, like if I had finished college, I would have advanced further. So let me make sure that now that my kids are here, I really push it for them that they go. It's very important. So I think in her case, she felt like, okay, definitely my sister and I could achieve more in life if we went ahead and just took that leap and went on. And there were really no other questions asked about that, because I honestly believe she was looking at her life and thinking about how her life could have been had she gone on to college.
Yeah. So So Hannah asked something here. I'm going to put her question. So did job abundance weigh your major decisions? So to see, Hannah might be talking about when you sort of changed direction, when you thought, I'm going to do English. And then all of a sudden, actually, it's really difficult to find something or at least something lucrative. What I'm going to change is where the need is. And of course, you found that out a few years after beginning college. So how might you answer Hannah in this way?
The first time when I decided English, I clearly was not thinking about at the time, like, oh, well, I'm going to have a job. I mean, like, well, I was thinking more like, I think I was very optimistic. Oh, I'm going to have a job right out the gate. Now, what I found was, no, it was not that easy.
Mhm.
And I was not going to have a job right out the gate. And as a matter of fact, I went on to pursue an English master's degree, which led me to teach for a while, which I found I didn't really like, and been an adjunct English professor. And even then, jobs were scarce, especially in the summer, because guess what? English jobs are taken up like that. So that was allowed me to do some rediscovery for jobs where there was an abundance, and hence the change over to communication sciences orders, which is the umbrella field for speech language pathology. So now I'm thinking, okay, I can be a speech language pathologist. There are so many more opportunities there. Let me go that direction. So it took me some learning the hard way first before I made that switch.
Yeah. So learning the hard way, I feel like that keeps happening. And it's like, why did nobody tell us? It's almost, I guess because things have changed so much. You know, it's almost like you look at a lot of older adults, like a lot of the boomer generation or like my own parents. And I think, why didn't you have to pay so much for college? It's like certain things did come easier for those folks. It just did. And so now it's like, if you don't plan well or budget well, you won't be as well off as your parents. You may never be. And then there's issues with retirement and all that, and things I'm just now starting to learn about. It's kind of scary. So let me jump to something else here. Another little fact, actually a suggestion by another article. I've actually found the article. This is from someone I found on LinkedIn. And this person, Paulina Karpis from brunchwork.com, I've got it posted up there. I'll link it down below later. I liked this article. She suggested that federal and state governments forgive a portion of student debt, at least 30 to 50%, because a lot of people out there theorize that the only way to really fix this problem of people never really being financially independent is to, well, the colleges unfairly jacked up prices, so let's forgive the debt. What do you think of these ideas of forgiving debt, even a portion of debt? Is that a good idea?
I mean, personally, for me, I'm speaking from my perspective of what I have, the debt that I have now, in the six figures. Oh, I would love some debt forgiveness. Any portion for me would be awesome. Now, I do know there is an option for those of us who, for instance, go into school systems that are that have students who are lower income, and if we work there for 10 years, we can have we pay the debt that we have for up to 10 years, and we work our time in that school system for up to 10 years. The remaining debt, no matter what is left over, is forgiven. So that is an option. But for me personally, just thinking ahead in the future, I don't want to do 10 years of work to get my loan debt forgiven. If I could get some forgiveness, even some sooner, I would think that would be wonderful, great help. Just for also for me, just being an adult, I want to buy a home in the near future. I just don't want to be held back by debt now.
Here's a statistic. Prestigious colleges, annual tuition, if you go into what do we really mean by prestigious? Okay, a lot of opinions on that. But how much do you think it costs just annually? So 1 year, you want to give it a guess? Anybody? I'm really dying to just say it because it's right here in front of me. I mean, it's a decent salary. Here we go, $70,000 to $75,000. That's for 1 year. 1 year. And a lot of people, they don't make that their first year out of college or maybe ever. So that could be who makes 75,000? Someone with a, relatively decent career. Let's pretend like it's whatever, a business owner. They make 75,000 and their kid comes to them and says, "Oh, hey mom, I want to go to the such and such prestigious school, $75,000 per year." So How much is that? Times 4, if they stay there for 4 years, that's a significant amount of money. Now you've got a 6-figure debt and maybe very little chance of getting a job and being able to pay that back fast enough. I don't like that at all. I don't like it. And the thing is, it's doing our students a disservice. And it's a lot of hard work for parents to see all these trends changing so fast, everything getting more expensive. I think it's hard work as a parent to steer a child in the direction of, hey, you need to find something useful to do. It's not just what you like or what you're interested in. Oh, I like those classes. You've got to be able to find something that where the need is, because guess what? You'll have that job. If you have any kind of debt whatsoever, you're more likely to pay it back. Were you taught anything about learning to manage debt and how to avoid debt in your household, or was it something that you never really discovered until recently?
Yeah, it was more so after school. Like I knew I was acquiring the debt in school, and I knew, at some point I would have to pay it back. We really didn't talk about that. We kind of looked at it as it was a necessity to acquire that debt for school. If I want to get out on the other side and, be, quote unquote successful and move on, and I can get to a point in my life where I can just pay off the debt. The same thing, for instance, when, I got my car and I have debt on that. Well, the car is something I need. So that debt is okay. At some point, it's going to be paid off. So those kind of more of the discussions we've had. Even though I will say my mother, she was a bit surprised when I told her recently about, I was like, Mom, I have I'm in 6 figures worth of debt. And she's like, why is that? I said, Mom, interest accrues on debt every single year. So I think she was under the impression I had under 6 figures worth of debt. So she didn't know how much I had. Definitely she was more in tune, like when I had that first degree, and I actually did 5 years at first degree, and I lived 4 years on campus, so that was even more debt on top of that. So she had an idea then, maybe for the first 2 degrees, but I think after that, it was just like you had no idea anymore what it was.
Yeah, because they don't really see it coming. At a certain point, the parent's not going to walk you up to the what do you call that office? Not the administration office.
Is it financial aid?
Yeah. Okay. So financial aid, they don't come with you and say, "Now, honey, are you sure you want to do this?" And usually, I mean, I know in the South, there's some nice little ladies working there, and they have their job. They probably haven't had debt in 20 years, and they're like, "Oh, sure, you fill out this paperwork and do this, and you're done." You walk out there thinking, "Wow." And I know at one point, I got a loan for graduate school, and they actually gave me too much. So the idea was, wow, I have like $3,000 extra dollars. I could play with this money, or I could give it back and thus have a little bit less, outstanding debt. But if you're a college student, what's the most tempting thing to do?
You're going to spend that.
I'm going to go to the local Mexican restaurant where all my friends are hanging out and eat cheese dip every single night. I'm going to blow it on McDonald's or whatever. And it's hard to control that if you don't have that discipline. And I hate to say it, but I probably wasn't disciplined enough. Now, in my household, I did hear a lot of, don't get a credit card, don't get in debt. But the thing was, I wasn't really sure what debt was. I'm like, what do you mean? There's either not having very much in a checking account, or that's it. I mean, you either don't have any money at all, or you somehow you get paid and you have enough to go out to eat. That's all I care about, buying clothes, go out to eat, and you just don't worry about it. And another thing, and I guess we'll spend another maybe 10 minutes talking why science tutoring says yes. What is that yes to? I didn't know what debt was, or yes to, what was I saying? I forget sometimes as we're wrapped up in all this. And I don't want to talk too much here. So why are people not talking about debt in their households? Why do you think, Jessica?
I was telling you a moment ago regarding my family, I think it was just assume that, okay, that's a means to an end. You're going to need it, because if you're going to get to the next level, you're going to have to be willing to take out that debt. And if parents are particularly, wanting their students to go on to college, I just don't feel like they want to look at that as a barrier for the student. Otherwise, the student wouldn't go, right?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's easy to tell your kid, no, you can't have those $300 tennis shoes. but it's not easy to say, no, you can't go get your education and get a stable job. I think that's what it might mean to them. But, and I listen to a lot of Dave Ramsey, and I don't know if you know who that is, but he's the guy that's all about no debt, flee from debt, stay away from it. Or if you have it, you need to, there's a strategy for paying it off as quickly as possible. But it means like living super cheaply. And the only way to not do that is just, have us let the smallest amount of debt possible. But right now it's like, well, shoot, everyone has it. Even if you don't have much, there's still, you have had it in the past. That seems to be the American lifestyle. So, you find someone who paid their way through college, never had debt, bought a car with cash, and they're a rarity in America. In the United States, they'd be America. She says federal grants. Okay, what do you know about federal grants? Because that was always something that when you're filling out paperwork in school, you're like, I don't want to fool with this. I just want to hurry up and get my money. Right?
Right. I knew back when I was in the undergrad, I qualified for the Pell Grant for certain when I went for that first degree. And I knew there also was a rule that once you pass that first degree point, that specifically a bachelor's, you were no longer eligible for the grant. So for my other degrees, I was no longer eligible. And I just remember feeling like kind of envious of my husband, who has an associate's and a bachelor's degree, which his bachelor's degree was paid for, right? Because I personally think, he went a better route of doing the community college first, but he still qualified for grants, right? Because he had not at that time acquired his bachelor's degree yet. And here I was working on second master's, and I'm like, I don't qualify for any more grants at this point. Like, that's it for me.
What about, okay, one of the things this article said was now, because of all this, you've got this widening gap of the rich and the poor in America. I mean, there's nicer words for it, nicer euphemisms, but it's like we have a widening gap. That is not what we wanted in our country. I never wanted that, to have this, then we're becoming like a totally different place. So what it feels like is those with less money are being punished. They're not stupider than people with wealth at all, but it's like, well, if we want to compete with those who have wealth, we get into debt. And I think, wealthy people, they still have debt too. What I've learned recently through all of this is a lot of people, there's a lot of like younger couples, married couples, because you're married. A lot of people will go and get a mortgage on a house. And so the house looks nice, and they buy furniture, it looks nice. Then they have to have a car that, because it's embarrassing to have a beat up car, right? So we think a car, then they have two cars. And then also both of them, if you marry someone with student loans, then you have quite a bit. Now you've got all that pressure on you, and you can hide. I think it's easy to hide debt. That's probably a reason people are maybe somewhat comfortable with choosing to have it, at least for a little while, because, I'm not walking around like I'm not wearing those like Scrooge chains, like here's all my mistakes. Here they are. I'm carrying them around. You can hide it. And so it fools people. And it's kind of tough because you're like, well, that person has a nice house and nice car. I want to compete with them. I don't want them to have better stuff than me because, I went to college, and I don't know. I think it's just a tough thing for people to deal with. It's like, how do you find the right jobs that aren't too expensive to acquire? And how do you find the right way to live, like a standard of living, without getting in over your head? Maybe I'm just rambling, but I don't know. I like talking about this sort of thing. Do you guys have any other thoughts about our college student debt? Like, and what can we do?
Oh, sorry. I'm not trying to hear you. Sorry.
That was exciting. Okay. Oh yeah, here we go. No Pell from Masters. I remember. Did you apply for several scholarships in your senior year of high school?
Yes, I actually did. With a lot of scholarships, Pell grants, with the grants and whatnot. And so I do distinctly remember getting that Pell grant for sure. I may have gotten one other grant that I cannot remember the name of. And I got a couple of scholarships, but most of my money coming out of high school that I acquired was a loan. loans.
I like this comment here that Hannah says that it'd be less debt if you had to wear it. You literally had it, yeah. So I remember senior year of high school, you're told by your counselor, apply for scholarships. And what it meant was you get up on stage during awards night and then you shake their hand, you get this paper, and you're like, okay, I kind of know what this is about. I felt like I was clueless, but I did what I was told. And I think I got one scholarship was $500. Not 5,000, $500. And that's still a wonderful thing to get. But I mean, think about it. That was probably based off of 30 years ago of, college thinking that, okay, $500 goes a long way. Does it go a long way now?
No, not at all.
Did you meet people who maybe had a negative outlook toward community colleges?
Okay, you were saying, you said naive. I'm trying to make sure I heard you correctly.
Oh, yeah. Did you ever meet anybody who was like, I have to get into the University of, Georgia, Tuscaloosa, whatever. Like, I have to have this because if not, well, no other place is good enough for me. Because I knew people like that. In fact, I was kind of that way and I didn't get what I wanted. So what about you?
Right. Yeah. I would say, like, for instance, yeah, definitely there are some universities people had to get into. I don't recall there being this big popularity around the community colleges at the time. Not a lot. Some students were because they knew that was all they could do. But then there were some other ones like, I have to go to this four-year university, whatever that was, or this one, or this one. And even myself, I was really bent on, I have to either go to this one or this one. And so, yes, I've been surrounded by individuals like that as well.
Yeah, it's a hard mindset to change because you don't want to be a jerk that shatters people's dreams. I don't want to do that. I think if I take the Dave Ramsey route, maybe I should more that way. People will follow me more. I don't know, but I think we need to be honest and truthful with our students. We need to share these experiences. That doesn't mean you have to tell them, hey, listen, I have 600,000. However, whatever amount of debt, you don't have to tell them exactly, but I think if you share the truth and say, I know you're being told you have to go to a certain school, that you'll never get a job without going to a prestigious school. It's just simply not true. Things have changed so wildly. I mean, there are people out there making money who never went to college. This isn't a new thing. It's happened for years. I'm not knocking anybody who went. I mean, a lot of people in my family went to college. It was greatly encouraged. I thought if I don't go, I was maybe undecided about what I wanted to do. But I thought if I don't go to college, people are going to think that I'm done. And people are going to think I'm not going to amount to anything. I have to at least go. Because all they do, they kind of soften the experience. Just take a bunch of core classes. Did you have college algebra?
College algebra. I remember I was only required to take one math, and I could have taken pre-calculus or calculus the way I tested in to the school, and I chose to take pre-calculus. And so that was it in college. Yeah, and then after that, I didn't have to take any more math.
I took college algebra with some other people. And I remember us all going to the professor one day saying, hey, we're not ready for this test. Can you give us more study time? And he wouldn't, because none of us were math people. It was like everybody, the masses in there. And I'm like, I still will wake up in the middle of the night thinking I have a class that I missed. And therefore I got a 0. I was failing and then I quit showing up. That's like a recurring dream. I guess college never really goes away from your mind. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. So, let's see. I covered everything on our notes. Is there anything else you would like to add?
I think one thing, and it probably was that first article you said. I think it was saying, our college is getting rich, sending, like they're paying these faculty members, so some of them are not really benefiting the students and they don't really care. So maybe we should just get rid of them. And I think my view about that is, for the most part of my university, I've had a good experience with the faculty. I don't really feel like they were wasteful at all, that I would say I would get rid of them. The only exception would be actually my last grad program, where I kind of felt like some of the women professors were like this, and I feel like at the end of the day, when I think back in retrospect, I don't want to be the person paying you to be friends with your buddy. And then when we have a discussion, something that's very important about my future, you're defending your friend over talking out the situation with me. That's not what college is for. That's not what your job as a faculty member is. And I still have trauma from that stuff to this day, because I'm thinking, I feel like in a sense I've wasted money. Because at the end of the day, like, my money was paid to the school and these people who have been there for years, and because they've been there for years, you have more credibility, right? They're like this, and they believe you're wrong, even though they're wrong in some kind of way, and they refuse to see it. They just defend each other. And I'm thinking, what have I just paid for? I think that's the only exception regarding, like, if I'm giving my money and I feel like I'm losing it. Just make sure. I just wish that college would just go in and audit their faculty and make sure they're really working for the benefit of the student and not for the benefit of each other. Do friend time off campus. Don't do it on campus, and especially don't do it in front of the student, which is actually what happened to me on a couple of occasions.
Wow.
Yeah. I'm not paying for that. I'm not paying 6 figures of debt for your friend time. I'm
There's
not.
one quote, and bear with me because the words are big. I like big words, but I don't typically say them on a day-to-day basis. But this article claims American education is a cultural disaster, a socialist racket, a bureaucratic nightmare, and a fiscal shakedown operation with a predatory lean on the future of its graduation population. So there. If you, according to the article, if you work in these places, you're like a demon, basically. I don't know if I would have been bold enough to really say it, but the more I see pricing go up, and the more situations like what you just told me, the more things like that occur, it just tells you something's got to change. College isn't bad, but the way things are done is pretty darn bad, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, and like I said, in some cases, like, I've had great experiences. For instance, the first institution where I do have the most debt. I mean, I had 2 majors, but one of the majors is giving me so many practical skills. It's communication studies. It's like the one that no one really talks about. It's giving me so many practical skills that I could carry out not only throughout my other degree programs, but any job I've had. It doesn't matter what I was. Like, at one point, I was a program assistant, which is like a secretary at a job. The other time, I was an adjunct professor. The other time, I was a tutor to college students, and even like nursing master and doctoral students, and I could do all of that with no issue. And also, I love research. I know you said earlier about something about you did like research. I love research because of that major, and I could actually use it. And I use it in my business today, and for other prizes, I use it. So, like I said, in some cases, I feel like, they're fine. But the other times, like when you have those situations, like I mentioned earlier about the professors that I had the issues with who are defending each other, I just feel like I would just make that one big statement. Schools just need to watch out for their faculty in general and make sure you're auditing them, taking time to look at them every year. I even, like, the last school had to request diversity training because I felt like I was receiving discrimination. And so I pressured the faculty to do that. And fortunately, that did happen. So I thought it was interesting. The article did say something about, get rid of the diversity personnel. I'm like, no, in this day and time, you're going to need that. Yeah, you're going to need it. You need it.
I remember applying for schools and having to write about diversity. That was like the buzzword because they wanted to make sure they were being inclusive. And, if you weren't from a very diverse area, you had to learn quickly and you had to change and figure out what is it, why do I need to learn more about this? Like, what exactly does it entail? So, I mean, I felt like professors at my school, we had people from all kinds of places. The problem was the students would be kind of unfair and say, I don't want a professor with an accent because I can't understand them. Oh, it's like a whole nother, like, oh, excuse me. I don't have the what, I don't think anyway. So, all right. Guys, if you like this kind of content, if you like Jessica being on the show, having the Jessicas together, please subscribe to JPES Talks because all this is really important to me. And I just want to use this as a way to help parents and definitely students because I just feel like the longer we live, the more experience we're gaining. And I want to make sure people know about that so we can share things to them and say, please don't do exactly what I did. You don't make these same mistakes. we can sit here and say, I'm glad I made some of these financial mistakes or job mistakes, but for goodness sake, if you can avoid some of these, please avoid them. I try to tell kids that, and maybe it gets through to them, or maybe later on it'll get through to them. So any last words before we close? I'm not good at closing. I just tend to go on and on. So sorry about that, everybody.
Oh, I'm good. Yeah, this was a great talk. This is something the subject that needs to be discussed more often. I'm so glad that you brought it up because it's not discussed enough. It's kind of brushed under the rug. So thank you so much for having me on. It was a joy speaking with you today and getting the input from our audience.
Yeah, guys, thanks so much for tuning in. You're the best, and come back when we do another live stream. So I'm going to end it, and it'll end, but we'll still get to chat a minute. So anyway, guys, thanks for tuning in.
Thank you.
Oh, feel free to share this because it is recorded. Okay, bye, guys.
Bye.